that's it, that's it, that's it. Death wobble is a really scary word that gets thrown around way too often in the automotive industry. You know, I've heard people do it from just like a little steering wheel shimmy to to an all-out, the Jeep is or truck, and some Ford trucks had it, GM trucks, Dodges, they've all had some form of it before, where the steering wheel will rip out of your hands and the vehicle will kind of jeer across the road. We've been dealing with death wobble for decades at this point, and I can promise you this is the most technically challenging diagnostic of death wobble I have ever experienced. It may not be the absolute worst as far as aggression and violence, but it is a pretty gnarly ride when you're into it. But you're going to want to follow along as we figure out component by component all of the very good things that were installed onto this Jeep just a few months ago, as we go through the process and try and figure out what has gone wrong with it just in a very short period of time while the customer has had it. At this point in time, professionally, over 10 years of me doing this, plus 5, 10, whatever years prior, this is the worst case of death wobble that I've ever encountered. And I'm really emotionally drained by it at this point. I'll give the lowdown. Jeep came in. While it was in, we noticed a number of things, why it was not safe. So ball joints and hub play and some steering issue. Long story short, customer ended up doing all new ball joints with us, hub assemblies, Moog OE style replacement steering, drag link, and tie rod assembly. We did Iron Rock off-road 2.5-inch lift kit with Fox shocks. A really nice combination. It's definitely one that we've done before with not this much excitement. And Jeep is like a 12 or a 15, I don't remember, maybe it's a 12 JK. And so where we're at right now, and that's really what matters, we're on set of tires number 4, Quattro set of tires. There is no drive shaft in this Jeep. We have taken all the suspension parts off, inspected all of the suspension parts. We've adjusted the control arms, and every single time we go over 70 miles per hour, every single time, and we hit a bridge abutment, the Jeep goes into violent, aggressive death wobble. We've had it into our alignment shop dose times. We have good caster numbers, good quality parts, good specs, and yet the axle feels like it's going to rip out from underneath the Jeep. So we just replaced the Fox shocks with a set of good used takeoff shocks that we had at the shop. We're gonna see if that makes any difference. Or we're gonna make the Savage go potty in his pants, because I'm gonna get this thing up to race speeds on the highway, and then I'm going to intentionally try and make it death wobble. Passing traffic. We're gonna get up to race speed here soon, and we're gonna see what the Jeep does. It's really hairy when it happens and I'm on this side of a semi, I'll be honest with you. That's not ideal. Yeah, that's it, that's it, that's it, that's it. And drive out of it, drive out of it. Semi's coming up behind us. Nope. Shocks did not make the difference. Well, this is kind of a first that we're experiencing it behave. This is exhausting. This is exhausting. We've had this Jeep for 2 weeks. This doesn't even make sense. The other day, I drove this exact stretch of highway. Back there, I couldn't keep the Jeep on the road. It doesn't make sense to me now. All right, so here's what I'm fussing about. I'm fussing because typically our westbound drive is not bad. Our eastbound drive is horrible. I just came back eastbound, and there was nothing. There was nothing. It didn't shake. It didn't shimmy. It didn't cause us any problems whatsoever. I don't understand that. And the only thing we did differently was we turned the HVAC off. So I think that's what it was, Davey. I turned the heat off for you, and that solved death wobble. That semi almost got you. Did you see that? I was scary. I was scary. You have your hard hat on. Safety first. I don't know what to make of that. That was confusing. I didn't like it. I was uncomfortable because I can't really say at a diagnostic level that we can confirm anything, because our drive there was relatively unchanged. It was not as violent as it often is, but our drive back, it didn't even death wobble once on us.
It just wiggled right back into place.
But what? What wiggled back into place? This is literally keeping me up at night. What wiggled back into place? See, there's a shake in it still. There is. But why didn't it shake on the drive home? This thing has been like clockwork, consistently death wobbling to and from.
Was that the counterweight?
The counterweight. Davey's the counterweight in the process. It was the heat. So the only thing we did differently was we got done with that stretch of death wobble, and I look over at Davey, and the hat has fallen into his lap, and he's red-faced. And I said, how you doing? You okay? He goes, I'm fine. I was a little nervous at first, but it was fine. He goes, it's just really hot in here. So I turned off the heat, and that's the only thing we did different. But based on the drive there and the drive back was turn the heat off. So that's what he said. The HVAC, it's the rotation of the fan is the issue, huh? So the only thing that Tom is saying is that if it is truly zeroed ahead, that it could be going in and out. We could hit a point in time where it's going in and out. The tie rod is flexing and we're at zero toe ahead. And my concern is that previous Jeep that we had a problem with its toe adjustment, was with a similar style adjusting sleeve. And while I understand that there is no magic in the sleeves themselves, does zero toe ahead and general flexion of the tie rod itself, does that affect things? Captain's log. It has been 14 years since we've been trying to establish death wobble in this here Jeep. Of course, the first pump that I pull up to. Sorry. Death wobble. We'll talk about what it's not. In this particular Jeep, it is not the toe-in, toe-out alignment. It is not the caster. We have adjusted it. It is not the track bar. We've changed it. It is not the tires. We're on the 4th set. What we haven't changed yet, we haven't changed brake rotors. We haven't changed hub assemblies. The ball joints are Moog, and they are arguably brand new and tight. We've inspected them, and one of them had a little bit of play, and we changed it as well. It is not the shocks, because we took our quality Fox 2.0 performance shocks out and changed them. So most recently, our team went ahead and changed out the springs. So we've removed the 2.5-inch lift springs, and we actually put factory JK front coil springs and spacers back in place. Right now, Davey and Jeff, mainly Davey, went ahead and put a GoPro on the bottom of the Jeep.
That was all me, not Jeff at all.
Not Jeff at all. Savage says it was all him, not Jeff at all. So if it falls off, then it was all Jeff.
It's not falling out.
Okay, I like your enthusiasm. We are gonna have to go to the gas station, because otherwise it won't be death wobbling, because we will be pushing it to the gas station. Look at that, we're gonna save some change. $3.49. At least this is working. What? That's this Jeep. That's this Jeep. This is just. It's the card's issue. It's the card. It's gonna work with this card. What is going on here?
Try tapping it.
Tapping what?
Probably it's your other card. That one doesn't look like a tapper.
I don't think that's a tapper. Whoa. I have never. I didn't even know I could do that. That was magic, Davey. I don't tap. I don't ever tap. Do you tap, Davey?
I tap that.
You. I'm gonna live in that moment. I'm gonna let you have that one, Savage. So last time I put in, I think just shy of $50 worth of fuel, and that's we're gonna have to figure out how many, like what the Jeep came in on mileage-wise, to then figure out how many trips I've taken, because I'm pretty certain that we're pushing between 20 and 30 trips of this loop at this point as we change things. And at this point in time, it's just a pride issue. I'm just mad. I'm mad about the death wobble. I don't even care about like the customer service part of things. Like I do, like I want to do this for our customer, but I want to do it because I'm mad about the death wobble and I should be able to figure it out. All right, 3544, magic number.
So either the GoPro died or we lost it.
So we don't know. You were just connected to it though.
Yeah. So it either died or it fell off.
I really hope that the GoPro just fell off. All right, here we go. Test number 1. So first bridge abutment, westbound, and we passed with flying colors. And we're cruising in at 72 miles per hour. Solid. Out of it. I had a little bit of shake, but we have no steering wheel stabilizer. It's hard to know what's your normal at speed. We're doing 74 miles per hour, and we just went across that bridge in spectacular fashion. Our test, so far this feels really good, which doesn't bode well for those springs that we took out. But I did have a test drive last week where I went all the way out and all the way back without any shakes whatsoever. We'll see what our eastbound drive, how that treats us. Davey, do you want us to stop and figure out whether or not the GoPro is there?
I don't think it matters.
Okay, well I
Not
just...
like we're gonna find it.
I just wanted, but I want... If this was Pittsburgh, I would have pulled in front of that vehicle. It's not, it's Ohio. No. You know what the Pittsburgh left is, Davey?
Nope.
In the city of Pittsburgh, it's very confusing. The vehicle who's sitting going left has the unwritten rule, a courtesy, right away. Davey, what are you shooting? What are you looking at, Davey? 72 miles per hour, 74. I gotta back it down, get closer to 70. I'm hitting these bumps. All right, bridge abutment at 71-ish miles per hour. Bumps. There's nothing there. How does it a spring? How do we have a bad spring?
So are you happy?
I'm not happy. I understand products go bad, but I mean, it makes some sense, but I don't want it. So the thing is, the Jeep feels better. It feels more planted. It feels more secure. Do I think that it's the end-all be-all? I'm once bitten, twice shy, but at this point in time, I'm like 5 times bitten, a gajillion times shy. I don't really know what's happening here, but it's the springs. The springs made a difference.
Can I just say what you've been calling an abutment? I don't think that is.
Well, we need to know what a bridge abutment is now. How are we going to figure this out? You think we could just Jubal that?
We gotta ask Jeff.
Because I'm telling you, I feel like that's a bridge abutment. It's when the bridge and the highway meet. It should be a bridge abutment. I think what we'll do is maybe change out the shocks and take it back out for another test drive. So what we did was we systematically eliminated pieces of the front end components. One by one, we want to change small variables. So it takes a little longer and there's definitely labor involved in it. But it helps us identify exactly where and when things change. So I think I'd like to put the Fox shocks back on and maybe the steering stabilizer and take it for a drive. Not because I think the steering stabilizer is going to make a difference, but because I want to see what that final comfort piece feels like.
So the bridge abutment is the separation of joint between the bridge and the road.
Dude, that seems perfectly reasonable to me.
Yeah. What's the contention or concern?
There is no contention, but Savage wants it to be a piece of concrete that holds up a bridge. Is that right? Is that what you wanted it to be, Savage?
For the most part.
Okay. So that it actually is like the piece of concrete that the bridge is sitting on that touches the road. And I'm failing to see that. I feel like we're having a conversation of semantics.
So an abutment is a substructure at the ends of a bridge span or dam supporting its superstructure. Single span bridges have abutments at each end which provide vertical and lateral support for the span, as well as act as retaining walls to resist lateral movement of the earth and fill of the bridge approach.
So I think we're having a conversation about semantics regarding, I feel like Savage might have set me up on this and like looked up what a bridge abutment is. But so what I just read on Wikipedia is that it is in fact the concrete that's holding up what, a superspan? What
Superstructure.
Superstructure that is actually holding up the bridge. And
The
then
end.
are we driving on the road? And did you set me up? Are you trying to?
He's smiling.
He did.
He set you up.
He did. He set me up.
Well, because I felt like you were wrong, so I looked it up.
But I don't feel like I'm wrong.
That's not wrong.
Like I'm still not wrong.
It's where the road and the
And
bridge
the road
join.
and the bridge meet.
That is the abutment.
That's not what you just read.
What is the name of that? What do you think that meeting point is?
The crack.
Oh boy.
I'm calling IRO. All right, so this is our never-ending death wobble, worst death wobble I've ever encountered professionally, Jeep. And that's not to say that it's the worst because of how it behaves, where it is really violent and aggressive. It's because of how many things were right about it when we initially started the build and the process for the customer, and how short of a period of time it has been since all these new components were installed. So we're going to be talking through what we have discovered at this point. The guys brought it in the other day because things are still not right. We're actually getting death wobble. Our shocks are back on like I had wanted to do, but we are on the JK springs and the spacer still, right?
Yes.
We did that intentionally to change as few variables as possible. So what have we discovered at this point on the Jeep?
Yet again, the upper ball joint on the driver's side is loose again. We have already warrantied that out at this point, so we're going to have to do that again.
Yeah, we've done that at least once.
At least once, yep. And it was new ball joints to start with.
Yep.
So this will be the third ball joint going in there. The hub assembly, which was also replaced a couple months ago, we are seeing a possibility of a little bit of play in there. It's hard to tell with the ball joint.
Right.
The next thing was, as part of that, as we were tearing it apart to get to that ball joint, the U-joint on the axle shaft has some extra play in it, and when it was in there, you could actually lift up and see the movement between the joints.
Right.
Right now, it's not able to demonstrate easily.
And the thing is, all of our compromised components, anything we've warrantied out so far, has been in this corner of the Jeep. I would also tell you that the death wobble comes on specifically when I plant this, this driver side front into a pothole or a crack.
The crack.
A bridge crack.
A bridge crack, also known as an expansion joint, which sits on a bridge abutment, if we're being very, very specific. We're going to talk through all of these parts and pieces, but this is like day 11-13 of having this Jeep in-house, and as I mentioned before, it's just a pride issue at this point. And we'll go through component by component and show what we have done, but this kind of brings us to this point where something's still not right. It's still causing the shakes and the shimmies at that very specific, over 70 miles per hour, and hitting those potholes and the imperfections in the road. And again, I would tell you it's really concentrated to that side. So what have we replaced? This is a used but good OE tie rod assembly. We actually just replaced this last time around. So as far as our process of doing a diagnostic, previously when this Jeep came in October, it had a new drag link, adjuster, and tie rod end at the pitman arm. It is on a stock pitman arm, as it should be. It got Moog drag link assembly, adjuster, and tie rod end, and a Moog full tie rod assembly, adjuster, and tie rod outer. So that was all replaced under that previous service. Previous service also included Moog upper and lower ball joints, both sides, good quality GMB hub assemblies, both sides. This is our part of our Iron Rock off-road and SFJ 4x4 lift kit. I always love to do a front quality control, lower control arms. This particular Jeep is rubber at both ends, and we've actually been able to adjust that caster in, caster out throughout this diagnostic process. This particular track bar is actually one that we had used in inventory, so we took off the Iron Rock off-road one, not because there was anything wrong with it by any stretch of the imagination, but because, you know, that's oftentimes what all of the, you know, people at home are like, oh, it's your track bar. Well, we wanted to wholly eliminate that, so track bar's out of the equation. We have this one on there, and it made no difference. It's important to know that as we change things, we change them one at a time, and then we don't put other variables back into the equation. So that's why you're going to see a lot of this stuff has been changed, is still that way, because until we can eliminate the death wobble entirely, and then that way we'll actually go backwards. So in one of the previous drives out, I thought that the springs had maybe made a difference, so that's when we decided to put the shocks back on. I think what the difference was the soft OEJK rate and the soft rate of the Bilstein shocks that we had here in-house actually helped mask or cover up that vibration at highway speeds, at race speeds. So, you know, so that's the issue. So we go back to those 2.0 Fox shocks. They're just a little stiffer shock for that, you know, off-road and lifted experience. Then, you know, yeah, it's going to shake because it stiffened up the suspension versus that very soft spring, soft shock. A lot of people say, but Neil, what about the track bar pocket itself? That waller's out on JKs. This Jeep is an 11, so it has the 3.8 motor, but the cool interior of our you know, later model JKs. Track bar pocket on this is actually pretty good. Not all at the axle side is not all wallered out, and the bolt is solid. No signs of witness mark or moving around. We torque everything. We torque mark it, so nothing's loosening off there. We also did the same here at the frame side, and the welds and inspected all that. So people who have a JL might know, you know, the early model JLs, that pocket moved around a little bit. Doesn't seem to be the case on this, and the pocket, it wasn't really an issue with JKs. It's not an issue on this one, and the pocket's not all wallered out. We have already done upper control arm axle bushings. Those would have been Moog as well. They're not delaminated. There is appropriate preload on them, and they're happy and all good and gravy. We eliminated the drive shaft because it's just not necessary for this diagnostic, and we didn't want anything, you know, to affect that potential shakes on the road. JKs don't have coil spring retainers. We actually retrofitted a TJ coil spring retaining clip onto the JK model. Our lead performance mechanic has done this a couple times. I think it's a great upgrade, simple, affordable, and it just keeps the pigtail of the spring seated in that lower portion of the bucket. But that's in there, so the springs can't be walking around and moving around. Those have been in there from the very beginning, you know, as far as with the IRO springs. So, and we've gone through, we dropped all these down, inspected all the bushings, we put them all back into place. We've had this. It's been into the alignment shop 3 times now. Also, and one of the things we thought it was zero toe ahead on the old, the Moog style tie rod assembly. So I actually was personally under the alignment rack and worked with our technician there, and we moved things around, and we realized that the toe in, toe out adjustment is relatively unchanged from when we had it into the shop in October. So we have all the documentation that builds from that initial alignment through and to now. We always do ours about a 1/16 of a toe in. I know there's some contending people, certainly with the JL crowd, the newest Jeep Wrangler platforms, that say a toe out by a 1/16 to an 1/8 is a sweet spot. We've never actually had to do that with JKs. I really don't think that's going to be our situation, our saving grace. The nature of this death wobble is such that it's highly not alignment. This Jeep feels really planted until it doesn't. We're gonna keep picking away at it. You guys gotta jump on. You gotta subscribe, and you gotta look for part 2. So this is gonna be the end of the video, folks, because quite frankly, there's a lot of work left to do as we work through this Jeep. We're gonna keep doing it without a steering stabilizer. We're gonna keep doing it with, part at a time, because quite frankly, until the actual physical components of parts have been corrected or changed, that death wobble is still going to be lurking under the surface. So if anybody says, steering stabilizer, dual this, single that, pass through this, that's not the answer. Let's get things right and then make our customer happy. So make sure that you are subscribed and that you're looking for part dose of the worst death wobble I have ever experienced.